Okay, well, it's 4 o'clock, so I will do my best to kick off and start on time. I'm Catherine Taylor. I'm the chair and one of the board members of Wellbeing Australia, and I welcome you today to our first day of our 2025 Education Summit. We've had a fun morning starting with IT playing games with us. So today, Andrew and I are all believing that technology is behaving itself for us. So before I kick off and share any more, I just want to acknowledge the traditional landowners. I'm coming to you from Gadigal land, and we respect and pay our respects to elders past, present, and emerging, and most importantly, to the customs, the traditions, and the knowledge of the Aboriginal community. We take the value of coming together and collaborating and connecting as a community, learning from nature, learning from one another, and we're very grateful to the Aboriginal community for sharing their wisdom with us and helping us to better learn and understand how to work together. So today I want to welcome you to our second session for this year's summit. We're here to really focus on some wellbeing principles around how you can build your home and how you can centre yourself. So for those of you who don't know much about Wellbeing Australia, we're very focused on positive, proactive strategies. So our view of what we want to give to you guys today and in all of our work is solutions, opportunities, strategies, and tips for you to be able to reflect and for you to be able to better prepare for life's ups and downs. So we're here to help you when time's working and days are great, but we're also here to give you some strategies for when things are struggling. We'd love a perfect world, but unfortunately it doesn't work like that. It is all about having the ups and downs. And so we want to be with you for those ups and downs. Really grateful to welcome our lovely speaker today, Andrew. Andrew, I'm going to just remove my spotlight so we can join you. And Andrew Murray is joining us from Wollongong, but actually dialing normally from New Zealand. So a busy, busy man travelling around. Welcome, Andrew.
Hey, thank you. Kia ora koutou. You're very welcome to. Thank you for your very good welcome this morning, or this afternoon here in Wollongong. Wollongong has treated me very roughly in the last couple of days. It's freezing cold. It's about 11 degrees today, and so it feels like home.
Winter is very much here in Sydney at the moment. Absolutely. So today, Andrew's going to share with us some of his wisdom. He is coming from an educational lens, having worked in schools as a senior executive and principal, but also working in collaboration with schools across various countries and different spaces and their leaders. So today, and Andrew, you can, fill us in from a moment, but it's really about being able to pull apart and understand those aspects and elements of well-being that really build our home and our center and our calm to be able to reflect and move forward. So for everyone in the room, we are here for you. Please add to the Q&A any questions you have. People often ask, so Q&A is anonymous. Nobody can see that question that you're sharing through. I'll be voicing them all to share them. And in the chat, if you want to share with us why you've joined the session and what you want to get out of it, Andrew and I will do our best to make that happen. So Andrew, I might hand over to you to share your slides and to give a little bit more about your background for us.
Yeah, thank you, Catherine. Here we go. I'm just gonna get this up here. I'm sharing. You can see that. Here we go. You all set. Continue to share. Boom. Technology. I'm a whiz. I get a pass there.
Perfect. There we go. Shared content is up. There we are.
Beautiful. Hey, look, this afternoon we're talking about building a home for your well-being. So in terms of that process of what we're going to do today is I'll share a bit of knowledge with you from some of the work that I've done, but also I think I'll share a few tools as well, because tools is what we're after. Those little pieces of magic, those little reminders that you might have heard about before that might help us to get through our day, get through our work. So we'll do a bit of listening, we'll give you a bit of structure, we'll do a bit of reflection, and then a bit of help about acting and maintaining our well-being. Because the thing is, we go along to a workshop, we go along to a conference, and we get all these good ideas. And I don't know if you're anything like me, but after the conference 2 days later, you get home and then all the notes go in your drawer and that's it. So one of the things that I think I'm going to give you today is just those small little tools that help you support yourself. So as we go through, I don't want to use the word fix, but before we reflect, I suppose, we need to understand, and this is always a really important part, Catherine and listeners today of the work that I do, I always start with my story, and I'll be brief, but I think it's really, really important because we all have our stories. As I read the other week, we've all got a book on us, and some of those books are really good, and some of those books are not so good. But that story, I think, is really important for you to reflect, because uh, in my story, I was the person at the conference who would be in the who would probably never go to a wellbeing conference. I used to be the person who'd be in the back row if I happened to get there, and probably be on my phone answering work emails. That was me. And something happened to me, which I had an experience which made me change completely. So, Catherine, as you mentioned before, I was in schools 30 years. I had jobs such as dean, year coordinator, assistant principal, deputy principal, boarding master, head of department, and finally principal. And I loved it all 30 of those years. They were fantastic. I was passionate about it. But one of the things which was my failure, I was the 80-hour a week principal. I was the 80-hour a week deputy principal. It was my life. And what tended to happen was whenever there was a event happening, or that ministry was the Ministry of Education in New Zealand, they were interested in putting a team together for something, I'd always put my hand up and say, yeah, I'm interested in that. Or if there was a bit of media to do and some media contacted me, I'd always say, yeah, I'm interested in doing that. I'll do that for you. So I was a yes man. But then something happened to me in 2023. And 2023, it was the peak of COVID. And I don't know, probably a lot of you out there have stories around COVID. Well, I got COVID in March of 2023, and I didn't realize I had COVID. I just thought it was a dose of the flu. And after a week off school, being that person, and I know some of you will be nodding your heads out there, being that person who um, was indestructible after a week off work, I said, that's enough. I've had a week off work. I need now to get back to school because school can't operate without me, or so I thought. And after a week, I went back to school, and it was the last day of term. And now some of the things that I'm going to tell you have been told to me because my EA found me collapsed in my office, and she went in there and she rang an ambulance, and I spent a couple of days in hospital. I was tested for COVID and it found I had a pretty severe case of COVID, and COVID attacked my brain. And in that process, I lost the ability to read and write and walk and swim and drive a car and do a whole lot of things. And in fact, even watch TV. The only TV show I could actually watch was Bondi Rescue for some crazy reason. I don't know if you have Bondi Rescue over here. That's yeah,
Yeah,
it obviously is a show over here. It's
been sleeping
and
for
it's
years.
yeah. Um, and so that was me. And so I had a whole lot of time off school. And then that was in the April of 2023. And then in the June of 2023, as I started to think about transitioning back to school, I got COVID again. Doctors will tell you you can't get COVID in that short space of time. Well, I did. And on that occasion, I woke from having a night's sleep, and I woke in the morning and I had no idea who anybody was. My wife, my daughter, my cats, didn't know what they were, who they were. And the ambulance were again rushed to our house, and there it was. I was told, look, how about we just keep you here, stay in bed, and we'll see how things go. So what occurred after that, I had something called goldfish, where I'd have a day and then I'd have another day after that, but I couldn't really remember the previous day. So it was kind of scary.
Mm.
From that point, um, I made the decision that I couldn't go back to school. It was something that I just, it was very hard for me. I cried and cried like a baby. You know how a baby cries and they sort of, that was me. I just, because I loved it so much. But it made me make a few decisions. And some of those decisions were ended up doing a PhD at Australian Catholic University in wellbeing and leadership, and how being a leader affects your wellbeing. And that's a lot of my work now. I also started a consulting group around working with leaders, working with groups around wellbeing. And I'm also writing a book. I've been approached by a publishing company to write a book around what does well-being and something called flourishing look like. And I'll talk about a little bit about that today. So flourishing is a concept which is widely well known, but it's a concept that started at Harvard, and Tyler Vanderweel is a guy at Harvard who's done a lot of writing around it, and he's approached me to do a bit of work with him. And I'm also doing a podcast, which is a 20-minute podcast with a friend of mine each week, where we talk about well-being. And it's nice, simple. I walk along the beach, 20 minutes, and it's just little reminders. So that's my story. That's where I come from. And I'm a type of person when we're talking about well-being. Look, I'm not an Instagram person. I'm a guy who's pretty average. And I suppose that's why people like to have a yarn around their own well-being with me. So, and I don't pretend to be anything else, team, as we have as we go through this piece of work today. So that's my story. And what I want to share with you today is a framework which I have been working with, and it's pretty cool. It's not new. It's a cultural framework, Te Whare Tapa Whā, and it's a way you can look at your well-being. Now, what I really like about this framework, and when you speak with people who work in the well-being space, they'll use a lot of different frameworks. But what I like about this particular framework is that um, it's cultural, it is spiritual, and it also is a framework that can be used with a group rather than a lot of frameworks, if you want to go down that intellectual space, deals with the individual, and this deals with the connectedness of groups. So Te Whare Tapa Whā talks about uh, a house, or in Te Reo Māori, the marae, and the whare. And what the house is made up of is these 5 sections. And the argument is, and what I really like about it, is that in terms of your own well-being, you only can be well if all parts of your house are well. For example, I might be able to go out and run a marathon this afternoon. After we get off here, I'm going to go out and run a marathon. I'm not going to, but it's just an example. So, so don't get worried out there. But what it's saying is you might be able to run a marathon, but you're not well if spiritually you are empty, or if, physically you might be incredibly well, but your connections, your social well-being, your family, your whānau is broken. Okay, so what it's saying in this type of framework, that all parts of your house have to be well for you to be really, really well. Now, this can be really, really challenging, because I know a lot of us. I know personally, as a school leader, a deputy principal, I was incredibly fit. I was into triathlon and half Ironman, but I don't know if my whānau, my family, and my social well-being were that good. I know I had a friend of mine I had a coffee with after I got sick, and he said, "Andrew, what do you do? What's your hobby? What do you do?" And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" And he said, "Well, back in your 20s, you were a cricketer. You played a bit of a cricket, and you're pretty average, but you're a bit of a cricketer." And I went, "Oh, thanks, Heath. Good on you, brother." Um, but I replied to him, "I don't know what I do. I work, and that's it." So my whare, my house was broken. So therefore my health wasn't that good. Catherine, have you got a question for me?
That's such a common statement, isn't it, Andrew? What people are saying is they're working and they love their job and they're giving their all, but that sense of who they are, and like your mate saying, what do you do, or what's that? people just detach. And I think it's really interesting because your story, even from sharing that absolutely crashing from a health perspective, it is what we're hearing from our community at the moment, from leaders to classroom to operations and behind the scenes to families. Everybody is finding that whole, I haven't got that balance. I haven't got that harmony. I haven't got that sense of all the bits and pieces of my house coming together. So isn't it fascinating? Like you say, you're a really fit person, but you didn't have that piece.
Oh, Catherine, it's really interesting, and I'm not talking out of school here. The thing that I'm finding with people that I'm working with is that often they're getting the physical right, um, but the most common amongst people is that spiritual well-being is they're searching for something. And I'm not saying let's go out and find religion. It's that spiritual, that time to reflect, that time to get up in the morning. I'm not saying let's all get up at 4:30 in the morning and meditate for a half an hour, then walk the dog, then eat Greek yogurt. What I'm saying is you do you, babe. That's one of the sayings I do when I'm working with people, and it sounds very cliche, but what that spiritual well-being, it looks very, very different for us all. And but that seems to be the one that is very empty. Is that something you get a sense of as
Absolutely.
well, Catherine?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's heaps of research, and interestingly, post-COVID. So, like you said, it's not that people are necessarily seeking a religion as such, but that sense of meaning and something greater, and that spiritual connection has just increased. And it's really, I completely agree with you. For a lot of people that I speak to, it's the beach, it's nature, it's all these different things, but it is their sense of calm and connection where they really feel like they're being present and thinking and reflecting. And I don't think we reflect well as a society anymore. We're rushing, and we don't think about that and ground ourselves in that, right?
Oh, Catherine, and I suppose that's one of the reasons why a lot of people get in touch with me because I'm I'm flat out honest. I go before I got sick, I was that guy, like I said at the start, who was in the back seat. I didn't have time. I didn't have time to do any reflecting or meditating or anything because I wanted to get into the work. I'm into the mahi. I'm the next thing, and then there's the next thing. But so I understand people like that. I understand what they are going through. And I
Mm.
suppose point two there is that, as I mentioned to you before we began, I'm at the National Education Summit in Melbourne next week. And one of the things that I start off by saying, look, I work a lot in Christian and Catholic schools, and they asked me to run retreats. And a lot of secular schools, state schools, do approach me and say, "Hey, Andrew, you know, we're not a religious school, but we would love you to run our teacher only day with that lens of, say, Te Whare Tapa Whā, with that taha wairua, or that whole idea of spiritual well-being, because I think that's what people are searching for. And it seems to be a badge now where people want to, let's wear the busy badge. I'm really busy. I'm doing this. And then people feel broken, people feel lost. And there's also that state of people getting into that self-help space of reading books, and they say, be like me and get up at 4:30 and do a workout and then meditate for half an hour. And people will try it one day and then the next day they can't keep up and they say, oh, I'm failed, I'm going to give it away. But that's not what it's about. And I know I said it before, Catherine, but I think it's so important. You do you, babe, whatever it is. If it's at the beach, that's cool. Um, whatever suits your lifestyle and you. Because I know I was presenting about a month ago and I was talking about this, and this teacher comes up to me afterwards and she said, Andrew, I was so glad you said that because I've got 4 kids under 10 and there is no jolly way I'm going to be getting up at 4:30 in the morning. In fact, I get up at 5:30 at the moment just to make the kids lunches. And it's and that's just the world we're in. And I suppose, look, I'm going to just flick to the next slide. And this is a question with that model in mind. And you've probably seen something similar to this. And this is what the is useful is the how are you tool. And it's something which a lot of the people I work with will use to start the day. And it's something that I'm advising people, look, start your meetings with this because it helps people get grounded. That whole idea of where are you today? And it doesn't mean, if you say today I'm going to, I'm red, I'm not doing that well at all. That doesn't mean you're going to get fired. It means we're going to create a safe environment for your well-being that actually today I'm not feeling good because my dog's sick at the moment. I had a Barney with my partner before I came to work, and the kids have just rung me to say they've left their lunches at home, so I have to, after this meeting, go and deliver their lunches. And that's okay. And I think developing that relational trust in the workplace is something that is really special and it creates greater efficacy. Comment, Catherine.
It's literally calling out where you're at. And I think it's that being present to be able to say, I don't feel great, but I know that I will be feeling better later. And so that whole being able to own it and name it. And even with your house theory, being able to say, well, that's the piece. I don't feel connected, right? So I'm feeling orange because I don't feel connected and I am lonely and I am struggling with that. Well, now we can do something about it, right?
That's outstanding. That's exactly where I'm at today. As we go back to Te Whare Tapa Whā, it might be that yeah, I'm really, really good. I've got my run in, I've got a little plan that I'm going for my run every morning, and I'm eating well. That's really good. But I seem to be a little bit lost, like the Harvard Flourishing Index talks about making meaning. Like, what's the point of all this? And if you're not really sure what the point is, what's your why? If you need to hone that down, you need to drill that down. If you haven't got that drilled down, it can be a bit hard. And I think another little tool which I'll share with you here comes from James Clear's Atomic Habits, which I'm sure a few people out there might have come across. If you haven't, well worth a read. Um, and that's the thing of in terms of who you are and what you think's important. Take a look at your diary. What has your diary said for the last week or the last month? What has that said in terms of your appointments? Now, if you're saying family is important and you look in the last week and have done nothing with your family, well, family's not important. You need to drill down the why and get it together if you know what I mean. Does that make a bit of sense, Catherine?
Yeah, yeah. And it's a really interesting one because people will often say that that social piece is where they're feeling that they're struggling, and yet they're not giving the time to it. And so being able to recognize how and where we're doing things. One question I do get quite a lot is, what if my family space is the thing that's draining my well-being? So quite a lot of people say, what if I am in that toxic relationship, or my brother, my sister, my mother, my father, whoever is the person that drains on me? Knowing I need the elements of the house, what do I do in those sorts of situations?
That's a great question, Catherine. I've done a bit of reading and research on this with school leaders, and I've had a bit of experience. Now, it's it's all about being kind and nice too. Is that being nice is just putting up with that sort of thing. Being kind to yourself, because one of the things I really advocate is who's looking after you. Who's caring for the carers? Who's actually looking after you, Catherine? And you can say, "Oh, my partner, my kids." No, all right. You love them very much, but the person looking after you is you, and you have to make those big decisions. For example, with myself, I've got a great friend who I love very much, and I used to see him for coffee. But however, after I got sick, it made me really, really sad when I'd have coffee with him because it reminded me of a time when I was into the work and it was a different me. So
Yeah.
what I did is, in terms of that toxic, it wasn't, it, well, yeah, it was a toxic relationship. I had to say, all right, I love you very much, but actually, I can't have coffee with you anymore because all we're doing is reminding me of a time when I actually wasn't that well, and that makes me sad. So in some cases, and you can't do it in all cases, but in some cases you've got to cut it. And that's probably another point which I'd raise is that leaders who stand up, and I've cringed when I've worked with these, and it's in corporate government and sporting groups, stand up and say, hey, we're a family, let's work together. And I just want to throw my hat off and go, bro, you're not a family. Your family puts up with people that are really, really average. Your family, we love. I love my sister no matter what. She does some crazy things, but I love her very much. In terms of the workplace, you're not a family. If
Yeah.
a person who is really toxic, needs to be asked to leave, and you don't put up with stuff like that. And that's where it's very, very different. And
And so true
and
that piece
it's
of
hard to
land,
remind ourselves, eh, Catherine, because I
yeah,
was a leader too that would stand up and say, hey, kia ora e te whānau, your family, we're all together. No, we're not. Okay.
yeah,
This is paid employment. And if you're no good, there's the door.
yeah. And if it's not working for you, right? But I love what you said, because that, like that friend, you can still love them, but you are entitled to space from them, right? And I think that owning and protecting our personal well-being and being able to get better um, combination of those different elements is being able to say, actually, that one's not working right now. It doesn't mean I'm banning you forever, but it means that to protect myself, to give me headspace, energy, focus, whatever it is that I need, I do need to detach from you, because that, reflection, that zoning you back to how you were, and people feel it. People feel their body physically change around those scenarios. They feel the tension, they feel the blood pressure, they feel the sweats, all that. So your body does know those things, right?
Oh, too true. And like I said before, it's all about being kind to yourself. No, who's caring for the carers? Who's caring for you, Catherine? Catherine's caring for Catherine, eh?
Yeah, yeah. Beautiful. Now we've only got a couple of minutes, so I will let you continue, just so that we make sure that we go through your key.
Hey, so that's my key points, I suppose, today. What I'd say to you is, think about, how are you? It's a really important thing. And the other tool that I do use with other people too is, what's one thing you're doing for your well-being at present? And I know that a lot of us find that really, really hard. And I ask people to go away for 5 minutes and write, what's that one thing you're doing, or what's that one thing that you're going to start tomorrow to do for your well-being? And, some people will turn around to me and go, oh, look, my partner and I have been a bit distant, so we're going to go and do a walk together. And I go, stop. Is that good for your well-being, or is that good for your partner? What are you doing for you? What is important just for you at the moment? Because a lot of us are not very good at being selfish. And that's one of the things that I've learnt to do really well now, is that I've learnt to be really selfish. That I've learnt to go, okay, I've discovered yoga, I've discovered Pilates. I get up and do that at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I just love it. And actually, if I don't do it, I get a bit grumpy, and I tell all my family, I tell my daughter, tell my wife, okay, this is what I'm doing in the morning. And they say, yeah, go for it. It's cool. So that's one of those things that I'd challenge you all, after you get offline with me today, or after you've watched this on recording. Give this a go. Go away and write down, what's that one thing that you're doing for yourself at the moment. And if it's a bit dodgy, if it's like, oh, it's not really anything, what's that one thing that you're going to do for your well-being? And it could be a game changer.
How did you start with that? Because your comment about caring for the carer is so true. And so many people in education across every role and function, from early childhood right through to tertiary, are all about other people. So quite often when they are prioritizing their well-being, it does involve someone else. It does involve their best friend, their partner, their sister, their brother, whoever. What would be your advice to people to be able to assess whether that action they want is a good action and is prioritizing them?
I think talk it over with somebody. And one of the things that I often see is that, one of my favorite stories is, I went into work with a school, and this principal was going, hey, our school is awesome for well-being. We have morning teas every Friday. We do yoga all together as a group, and it's awesome. And then I went, oh yeah, that's cool. I'm listening. And then I sort of went to I had lunch with some staff, and we just had a yarn about, what's on TV and stuff. And I said, hey, tell me more about this morning tea Friday, and what's going on about that. And some of the staff said, I hate it. I'm trying to eat well and look after my well-being, and we've got all of this food out there, and I find it impossible. And then if you don't go, somebody thinks there's something wrong with you. So I'm not going, but missing out, and I don't know what to do. And this person was getting stressed over something that was supposed to be a celebration. And Catherine, that's probably one of those things that I do a bit of work with people too, is that there's a difference between staff appreciation and staff well-being. Okay,
Mm,
staff well-being is a
mm,
framework that is looking after a group of people that is going to make you flourish. Staff appreciation, and there's nothing wrong with that, is sausage rolls for lunch, shouting sausage rolls for lunch or morning tea, or getting together and having celebrating someone's birthday. That's just appreciation. That's not deeper stuff. And maybe and people don't want to raise it because it's somebody thinks they're doing something good. And in our society, we're really interesting that we don't call people out. We don't
mm.
actually tell the truth a lot of the time. We're too busy being nice. We're going to say, oh, they're a nice person. I don't want to say it. But actually, it's making people feel uncomfortable sometimes, Catherine.
Yeah. And if we don't share, people don't know. And I think that's a really interesting one, because I do hear that back from people that, schools and organizations are trying to do things to improve well-being, but on occasions they will miss the mark, right? And so if we're not giving the feedback for them to be able to adjust, then we're not able to actually improve things. But I do love your comment about differentiating well-being from appreciation and recognition, because I do think that's blurred so often. And I think it's such a valuable piece to just be able to think and reflect on.
Oh, absolutely, and that's where too. It's finding the right tool and the right people to work with and think about. That particular your particular framework and the way what you're going to do in terms of well-being and your environment. It's like that saying that I've had throughout this little afternoon is you do you, babe. What suits one school or workplace won't suit another. It's like, for example, I'll just share the story before I wind up. You might have seen the sports teams that get in a circle and do the breathing. It's a great mindfulness well-being thing. Let's all breathe, let's be intentional, let's think what's next. Well, a lot of them that are doing it have had no coaching on it and have just seen another team do it and say, oh, we all need to do this and let's do this. It's the coaching behind let's do breathing. It's the coaching behind yoga.
Mm.
It's the coaching, in that meditation space. That is the key. You just don't go and do it and hope for the best.
So true. Absolutely true. Thank you, Andrew. So grateful for your time and for your words of wisdom. I think you do you is our takeaway for today, is actually working out what it is that you want to do, and being able to feel confident and comfortable, right? To go
Oh,
away and take that step and to make that priority of you. Yeah.
yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Beautiful takeaway. Well, thank everyone. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Hopefully, that's given you some bits and pieces to think about, to really reflect. And I love the concept around making sure all those elements of our house are strong and robust, and being able to pull it apart to build it back again, I guess. So thank you. We will be sharing some resources in some of Andrew's podcasts, and a beautiful blog he shared for us around this concept as well, with everybody who's registered. So if you haven't shared this on with others, do feel free to. I have popped in the chat there the next sessions that we have coming up tomorrow and on Thursday. So we will be unpacking wellbeing in an audit sort of perspective. So Maria will be doing some work tomorrow around iceberg theory to really start to look at what's underpinning and what's behind the scenes that you haven't considered around impacting those that you're working with, living with, or caring for. And then Darren will be talking around organizational well-being. How are our strengths and talents impacting and helping us? How are they hindering us in that piece as well? And then we'll wrap up on Thursday with Dr. John Chan talking about some burnout prevention strategies around his research. And then Maria and I will do a guided wellbeing audit so that you can go through the process and identify, as Andrew said, what's that action that you want to take away and how's that going to be meaningful to you. So please feel free, if you haven't already registered, for them to join in. You will get some resources in the next couple of weeks just to help you continue the conversations and to really prioritize what you've been reflecting on and building on. You will receive a survey as this session closes. If you can take just 1 minute to complete that survey, so we make sure we help you to improve where you're at and where you're going, that would be wonderful. As for tonight, have a lovely evening. We hope to see you all tomorrow. Thanks. Bye, Andrew.
Mā te wā.